on our Egyptian channel.
Thank you very much.
First, I would like to emphasize about the benefits of the Tripartite Council today and what the add value of the agreement.
Well, the benefits are very obvious. We have a market of 625 million people, which is almost half the total population of the African continent. And if we look at the projections by McKinsey and other consulting companies, by 2020, we shall have, consumption worth $3 trillion. So if we create this single market for ourselves, for both development, for industrialization, etc., then we shall also be creating jobs. We shall also be making those who are at the moment coming out from universities, from technical colleges, from high school, without hope. We give them the hope because the opportunities will be created by the tripartite through this development. Our market is important.
Yes.
Because everyone is looking at this market. And if you look at our trade statistics, in the tripartite alone, the tripartite region imports almost close to $450 billion. Assuming that 50% of that 250 billion, were to be produced and traded among ourselves in terms of the products, in terms of the services and the logistics, supply chain that go to doing that, then you can tell that we dare not miss this opportunity of the tripartite. And the message to the private sector is that come on board and take advantage of this market because it's been created for you. Because the individual markets, frankly speaking, as my friend, the one of this foundation, the Sudanese billionaire, you know him, the telecom one, Mo Ibrahim would say, frankly speaking, our individual countries are not viable economically. And if they're not viable economically, they cannot be viable politically. But through the tripartite, we all become viable.
But each country here in the African continent has political problems and also economical problems, how we can handle or how we can apply integration with all these issues.
Let me tell you, what you see as political problems, what you see as conflicts that are happening in quite a good number of our countries, it's as a result of the structural problems. It's as a result of the failure of the economies. Because if these economies were to provide opportunities, there is no way a warlord can go and recruit a young person with a future. But when people do not have a future, a warlord can go and recruit them and use them. So we are about creating opportunities, turning this corner for Africa, to make Africa the continent, the tripartite region that will drive the global economy. Because all these problems you're talking about, they are structural. And we must address those structural problems through the tripartite framework and through also the African Union Continental Free Trade Area. And we're almost there.
We can talk about the future after this agreement. So what's the step?
The next step
especially
after this...
the investment skills.
Well, let me tell you something.
Yes.
The future after this agreement is when the tripartite agreement has been signed, declaration signed, the communique issued, the work begins. The work begins in the sense that we now have got to have each country ratifying the agreement and implementing what has been agreed. Where we are, it is simple. We now need to go back to the countries, to the national parliaments, in order for us to make sure that they ratify. So this is where we shall begin. But most importantly, I've said to you, the private sector and other stakeholders, including civil society, they need to come and take ownership of this tripartite. Because when they do that, it is then owned by the people. Because we, the tripartite, ask yourself, who is the tripartite? The tripartite is not the governments that are meeting here. Our heads of state and government simply represent their people. The hopes of the millions of the citizens of the tripartite region are in our leaders. And they are taking the most important step to say, we are going to transform our national economies, and we're going to transform Africa. And we're going to stand tall in the rest of the world and become equal partners and not be looked upon down as a continent where we shall pity the continent. In any case, The Economist in 2000 had this article, Hopeless Continent. A couple of years back, The Economist, 2 years ago, 2013, The Economist was saying Rising Africa. Now, the narrative of Rising Africa is only going to work when we begin ourselves to implement the commitments that we have, and the future is bright. On your question on investment, you have a tripartite region with a combined gross domestic product of $1.3 trillion. You tell me which company is not going to invest. I can tell you, the Prime Minister of Japan, Shinzo Abe, hosted a investment summit for me. And I can tell you, and he has been to Africa twice with Japanese companies, and they are also investing in Africa. The Brazilians are investing in Africa. The Chinese are investing in Africa. You saw it here during the Economic Development Conference. Didn't companies like Siemens and others open their wallets and do it?
Yes.
Why are they doing it?
Africa is coming now.
They are doing it because of that. You also have the German companies that in this region of the Sahel, they are investing in solar energy. They want to put trillions of dollars in solar energy. Why? Because we are moving towards renewable energy. And since we have this sun that God gave us, it becomes an opportunity for us through renewable energy to export that energy to Europe. So what we need to do is to look at ourselves as the continent of the future, of which we are. I'm telling you.
You look optimistic, very optimistic.
I'm not. My optimism is informed by what I see happening in Africa. It is informed by the fact that I see millions of our people, including here. If you look, for instance, at Egypt, let's take the bond that was issued for the Suez Canal. It was a 30-day bond. Within 9 days, the 9 billion was raised.
Yes.
And you look at Egypt. Who was subscribing to those bonds? You had people who are in the street, who went to the banks to subscribe to these bonds. I'm talking about that. So my optimism is because the people themselves in Africa are optimistic. But they are optimistic thanks to the leadership that we have. Things happen when you have a leadership that can inspire confidence, that can motivate people to work. And we have that leadership. And
let me tell you
something. Let me conclude and say that leadership is coming down to Sharm el-Sheikh. And thanks to His Excellency, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, whose policy has been very clear in terms of African integration. He is a champion. We saw him also during the Economic Development Conference. He was also, it was that inspiration that we have. And our leaders will come here to join hands with him to create a better, Africa, a prosperous Africa.